Welcome to another long-form episode of the Striation 6 podcast. I'm your host, Sam Trotta, and I hope you're ready for an interesting, informative exercise conversation to help you advance your health and feel, function, look, and live better through exercise for as long as possible. Please feel free to like and subscribe to the podcast, leave comments, leave feedback, leave topic suggestions. I want to hear from you, and I want to help. Enjoy yourself. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Striation 6 podcast. I'm your host, Sam Trotta. I'm one of the co-founders of Striation 6, and as it is with everything I do in this podcast space, it's my mission here to bring you free, high-quality information to help you feel, function, look, and live better through exercise. Thank you to everyone that's been supporting the podcast and the Striation 6 exercise minute episodes in particular. Trying really hard to get a couple of snack size, or quite a few actually snack size bits of information out to you every week. Today, however, is a longer form podcast. I have no idea how long we're going to go, but I know I could certainly talk with this gentleman for quite a long time. I have the what I would call esteemed privilege of chatting today with my business partner at Striation 6. He's also one of my closest friends, and perhaps most importantly for this podcast, he's the founder of ISOPHIT, which is, well, we'll get into that. His name is Brad Thorpe. Brad, it's great to have you on the Striation 6 podcast.
Man, great to be here, man. I look forward to obviously talking a bunch over the next little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So fun fact that a lot of people might not know, I actually joined Striation 6 after Brad started it in 2000. Was it 2005?
2005, yeah.
Yeah, 2005. I joined in 2000. Sorry?
20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago. I joined in 2008. I think it was April. Yeah, April 1st, 2008. We opened here in, when was it? July of 2014. And here we are. Brad, related to ISOPHIT, tell us about a paperclip and a couple of pieces of cardboard.
Oh, man. Yeah, with ISOPHIT, a couple clients walk in one day and say, "Hey, Brad, there's no wall space at my gym." And so the antithesis and the idea of ISOPHIT came to me later that day. I was literally sitting in the bottom of my bathtub. And for those of you that don't know what ISOPHIT is, it's a motion restraint device that deals with isometric based exercise. So really kind of learning how to contract muscle without creating much joint motion at all. So what ended up happening, I was using a wall for isometric exercises, like literally I can push into anything. And two of my clients walked in one day and said, "Hey, Brad, there's no wall space at my gym." So later that afternoon, as I was saying, I was in the bottom of my bathtub, and that sort of epiphany moment came to me and sort of said, "Wow, I know how to create a wall that you can put in the middle of the bathtub." So I jumped out absolutely naked, dripping wet, ran to my home office, and literally took a piece of paper, cardboard, some scissors, a paper clip, and created my first ever model of an ISOPHIT. And subsequently, let's go back to 2008, and now we're looking at it's 17 years ago. It's pretty crazy. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, time flies. Time flies. I remember when I first started working. So I worked for you at first for about, I guess it was like a year and a half, 2 years. And I remember one of the first discussions we had, you showed me the model of this machine, and I began to learn about the efficacy, the power, the potential that isometric exercise has to offer. And it's been really cool watching the machine come to fruition in its various forms, and watching the group exercise classes form. It's been amazing to watch. It's been amazing to watch alongside us, opening our gym here and doing all the other good stuff that good gyms do. There's this kind of different, unique, interesting form of exercise that we're able to offer that no one else in Toronto offers. And I feel so good about it because it's legitimate exercise. It's fantastic exercise. It's healthy exercise. It's not gimmicky. It's not disingenuous in any way. It produces results.
But exactly. And like, it's one of those things it was definitely glaring and missing within the exercise world. I mean, isometrics, if you look at just the physiology of muscles, it's a named muscle contraction that the entire industry has completely overlooked and omitted from a standard training protocol. And when you look across the board at individuals who traditionally participate in dynamic exercise, inevitably, and this is the trainers all the way through to the participants, they all end up injured. right? Whether it's like you're doing a deadlift and you hurt your back because, the weight is wrong, or your mechanics is suspect, or you just lack the skill and the integrity of your structure to actually perform the movement pattern with a level of quality. And, you see it in youth fitness, and where ISOPHIT fills in that gap, it gives individuals a platform to start, right? It's where individuals in the exercise world should start. And I believe every session is with the foundation of isometric based exercise. And that's not to say that you shouldn't do cardio training. It's just when you're looking at progression, start with the isometrics, move over to the sort of the skill based development stuff afterwards. And that's either lifting and or the cardio side. Both need to be done. It's all important, but if you're ill prepared for it, you're almost guaranteed that that dynamic component will injure you. Whereas the isometric component, you're almost guaranteed it will never injure you. So it's just a built-in sort of, call it safety check, if you will.
Right.
Like, do you have the ability to contract muscle? If the answer is yes, then you should have the ability to then therefore move muscle. Right? It's just a preceding step, and that's where the industry is, to be honest, faltered, and that's where Striation 6, one of our founding principles, obviously, is really kind of to do no harm. Like we adopt that obviously from the medical world, where it's like how do we make exercise safer and arguably more intelligent, right? Because it just comes back to, hey, here's something that the entire industry forgot about.
So let's dial it back a little bit. So there's a couple of ways I want to dial it back. One, let's take it to the client first, and then let's take it back to you and the impetus for you getting into isometric. So for a person who is either interested in exercise or is an experienced exerciser, but not an exercise professional, not to the level of being able to professionally provide exercise-based services, what would an isometric look like? Let's take it back to really, really basics here. What does isometric exercise look like? What is someone looking to experience when they engage in, whether it's on an ISOPHIT or on a wall or anywhere else you may perform isometrics? Break that down for the people a little bit.
So the easiest way to sort of break down isometrics is think of any dynamic movement, like any motion-based exercise you've ever done in your life, and take a photograph of that exercise. So that would be the isometric component of that exercise, where there's near zero motion occurring. And where I say there's near zero is because the muscle actually moves inside while the joint doesn't move.
Right. So near zero external motion.
Correct. Zero external motion. There is internal motion. But for the lay person, it's literally performing an exercise without the movement component. So it really is sort of the foundational principles of things like yoga, right? If you remember like martial arts, where like if you've ever done it, you've done like a horse stance, where it's just you're going to hold the position for a period of time. So you can either do it where you're holding a weight, right? That would be like historically called a yielding isometrics. Now the scientific community is now calling it a HEMA, so a holding isometric muscle action. And or you could be pushing into something that doesn't move, right? And that pushing used to be known as a overcoming isometric, or now known as a pushing or pulling isometric muscle action, so PEMA. They are different from a neurological perspective. They are different from a risk perspective and a performance outcome perspective as well. And I mean, that gets into a little bit more complicated stuff.
Sure.
But for the individuals just starting out, I would highly recommend just going up to something that doesn't move and push into it, because it will match your output in real time. So let's say you're relatively new to exercise and you don't know what weight to select, right? Because, there's obviously forces associated with selecting the right weight that you have to sort of worry about. But if I go to push into something that doesn't move, it's always going to match my output in real time. And that's, thanks to Sir Isaac Newton and his third law of motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So it literally is a law of motion. So if I'm pushing into something, it's going to ramp up to my peak output. Then I'm going to start to get tired. And it actually changes in real time based off my fatigue state. So making it safer. So if I were to hold something, well, when I get tired, that load actually gets heavier. relative to my fatigue state, right?
Right.
So it's relative to fatigue. So the load does, like the number on the weight obviously doesn't change, but your
Sure.
output, your ability to maintain that output drops. And most people don't calculate that load change. And therefore, it does put people at risk if you're ill prepared to tolerate that new increase. So,
Got it. Got it. So yeah, I mean, man, there's a lot in there. I think that's probably a pretty good way of breaking it down at a broad strokes level. When people come in here and they ask about isometrics, I say it's basically like, because usually it's with an ISOPHIT. I usually say you're pushing or pulling on something that doesn't move, and it's going to match whatever you give it. If you break it, you buy it. But other than that, and if you do, I'll probably just give it to you for free, because you got to be pretty flipping strong to break it. I guess that's the point. And it's really interesting just watching the variety, just the wide variety of people we've got that come in for our ISOPHIT 30 and 30 classes. We've got now really high level, one guy's a really high level competitive sailor and skier. We have a couple of triathletes who are doing our classes, and then we just have people who are looking to, function better in life, live longer, see their kids and grandkids grow and flourish. And I think it's a testament to the versatility of the machine and the versatility of call it the modality, that we could get the same, or sorry, excuse me, such a wide variety of people in the same class, with Rachel, our ISOPHIT queen, making modifications where needed. Yeah, just that. I mean, it's such an effective modality.
it matches all humans. The only one person that I've never, where I didn't feel confident in saying we could help. He had a complete C3 severance of his cervical spine, and he was making fun of me. He's like, "Hey, how is you going to help me?" And this gentleman, he, like, in order to move his wheelchair, he had to blow into a straw. So, that to date is probably the only person that I've seen that we couldn't help. We've seen people with T7 severances, so individuals who basically were paraplegic. We've helped them sort of qualify for exoskeleton trials, so they've actually walked again. So
Right.
it's kind of cool. So we've seen, like, across the board, people coming out of comas, who are clinically dead coming back to return to life. So let alone return to play, you're coming back
Right.
to return to life scenarios. So, like, across the board, we have that side of the medical sort of world, and all the way over to the other side, we literally have the world's fastest, strongest, and most dominant athletes using ISOPHIT. The roster of people that we now have using it, like, if I just looked at the sport franchises, right, and organizations, if I take their combined brand value, it now exceeds $98 billion. So
Wow. Okay.
so it's pretty significant. And so the next organization that picks us up, and it should be hopefully by tomorrow, that'll sort of thrust us over $100 billion worth of combined brand value of our customer base.
Huh. That's interesting.
Right. And when you're sort of looking at that, because a lot of people historically were sort of saying, "Hey, Brad, what athletes are using ISOPHIT?" Because they needed that validation that a professional athlete was using it. And so we spent the last several years sort of focused on, okay, let's just get like logos and names and all this wonderful stuff. And then we had like a couple of weeks ago, we had one of the biggest names in, sport and entertainment, their management company, reach out, directly to look after one of their athletes. And that opened us up to 290 professional athletes.
Right.
So it's pretty phenomenal when you see the outcomes that we're able to see consistently within weeks, not years of training, within weeks. And I say within weeks because some people, it takes a little bit less, right? We're actually seeing noticeable changes in professional athletes in 2 sessions. And
It's pretty amazing. That's pretty
yeah,
amazing.
and those are the world-class ones, right? So for your mom and pop and weekend warriors, your level of commitment might be different, but your result is not going to be much different. You're going to notice a significant change. And when you were talking about like the versatility of the product, but also the demographic and the wide array of individuals that use ISOPHIT, it really does set the foundation of human movement for everybody. Like there's not a person that can't benefit from building up their isometric strength.
That's got to be a hard one for you to market. That's got to like that has to be a hard marketing problem to continually try to solve because like all the conventional marketing or not conventional, I guess what would you say best practices marketing advice that at least that I've ever heard has said like you want to avoid saying your product's for everybody. But if your product is for pretty much everybody, how do you how do you say that and avoid the pitfalls of that in trying to market your product?
Well, the beautiful thing is I've probably done everything asked like 100% asked backwards and wrong. I would definitely be the ultimate failure in most marketing classes.
Okay.
But yet, most of our customer base has always phoned us. Like we don't have outbound sales.
Right.
So once you try it, you're like, oh, okay. And
That's kind of, yeah.
You have to try it. Like for you to sit here and listen to me and sort of say, it's going to help with this and this and this and this. It sounds too good to be true. But
it's interesting because like the marketing of the classes that we've tried to do when you see these like the most successful marketing that's worked with us, it features mostly women in their 50s who are incredibly strong and fit doing these never before seen postures on this machine that no one's ever seen before, and people kind of go, what the heck is that? And to your point, one of the first things we say when we receive inquiries is it's hard to explain. Would you like to come and try it? We have a free 1 week trial, or you can get 5 classes for free or something like that just to give it a shot. Because trying it is truly the game changer. Having the experience of it really allows people to see the value, it seems.
Well, it's interesting. So you bring up the 50-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And so in the world of power and sport, let's go with the golf drive, like driving a ball in golf, might be one of the hardest things to orchestrate because you have to obviously change direction. There's this like basic simultaneous pronation and supination and collapsing of joint structures in order to orchestrate this movement pattern. So this past probably about a year and a half ago, I started working with a lady by the name of Kelly Rudney. And Kelly was on the World Long Drive circuit. So Kelly just turned 50 years old sort of last summer. So she's still currently 50. She just won the World Long Drive Championship. So we've gone from like history and back pain, starting to work with ISOPHIT. Now she's the world champion and she's 50 years old. So she's the oldest world champion ever. She's the first woman over 50 years old to ever drive over 400 yards. So she had in the championship sort of tournament, she had a drive that was 413 yards, 409 yards, and the championship round, she won the long drive championship with 406 yards. So now to give you perspective, most males who golf would be very excited about a 300-yard drive.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right. So you look at that, and here you have an individual, and Kelly's a phenomenal specimen. And she has an ISOPHIT at her house and all that sort of stuff. And that's one of the components, but I'm going to state that it's probably the key component because you have to be able to transmit force throughout the entire structure. And that's where the isometric component comes in, right? So you got to think about things like force tolerance, force generation, force transfer. But most importantly, if you're talking about individuals who want to move well, it comes back to how well they express that force.
Right.
Actually use it for something that you want in your daily life. And that could be picking up your granddaughter. It could be picking up your son. It could be, walking down the street, holding your hands with a loved one or whatever it happens to be. It comes back to force. Like, as I said, can you tolerate it? Can you generate it? Can you transfer it? And can you express it? And that's the guarantee that I can make to everyone. We're going to improve those 4 qualities.
Well, I think one of the things that happens in the exercise world too is different kinds of exercise and different kinds of exercise goals kind of get siloed from one another. So one of like a common expression I'll have of an improvement is something like my walking feels easier, but we haven't worked on my walking.
Yeah.
And like, in particular, like I had one person who mentioned, and this is through openly, it's a combination of isometric and dynamic exercise that I do with her. But she's in her 70s, and within a few months of starting to do this kind of strength training, she said, we haven't really done anything for cardio, but when I walk up the hill on Avenue Road, for anyone who's not in Toronto, there's a pretty steep hill around Midtown. When I walk up the hill on Avenue Road, approaching St. Clair from Davenport, I used to have a really, really hard time with it. And now it's actually pretty easy. It's sort of routine. And we haven't worked on my cardio. How does that work? And it's like, well, there's no silos. If we've improved the efficiency and level of output of your muscle system through, effective resistance training, including isometrics, yeah, your cardio is going to be that much easier.
Well, it's interesting, right? And like, even so, I'll call you out on something quickly, right?
Sure.
Even the bias of saying there's resistance training and isometrics is separate. Isometrics is part of resistance training, right?
Oh, I
Because,
think, sorry, I didn't mean to say, I meant to say, I thought I meant to say isometric and dynamic.
oh yeah. So, anyways,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, but those are the things that even then it's like, when you start to look at everyone just pigeons, like dynamic exercise is separate, and here's the, call it the ugly stepsister, if you can still say that, of the exercise world, right? Where it's like, nobody cares about the isometric component, and it's like, and it's industry wide. The
Yeah.
bias is always about movement. It's not about contraction,
Sure. Sure.
right? Because you can't move without contracting muscle,
Right.
right? And the foundation of all dynamic contractions is the isometric, the increase in that tension. And that's where the industry, needs to be held to account.
Well, I think
Um,
it's a hard sell just at a I think it's a hard sell at a heuristic level, like just at a human bias level. Say, hey, this thing where you're not moving, it's going to help you move better. It's almost like saying, for work productivity or entrepreneurial progress, meditation, doing relaxing, taking time off from time to time, that's actually going to help you in your effort to be more productive. And you think, how the hell is it going to help me in my effort to be more productive? And it's like, well, if your mind's in a better place and you're well rested, then when you put forth a productivity effort, it's going to be that much better. So it's kind of the same thing. They don't seem related, but they're obviously maybe not
well,
obviously, but they are absolutely related.
they're 100% intertwined. And there's some research that will indicate that individuals with poor isometric strength have higher levels of depression, anxiety, and suicide risk.
Wow,
Um,
that's intense.
yeah, it's like off the charts. But you bring up meditation. Let's say you're sitting there holding a posture for 45 minutes, doing isometrics.
Yeah, fair enough.
So like literally it is the foundation of what we do every day. When you're sitting at your desk, you're sitting there isometrically. When you're sitting in your car, isometrically. When you side lie for sleep, it's isometric, right? The majority of your day, call it closer to 23 hours a day. I'll give you an
Right.
hour for movement, is isometric based.
Sure. Well, also, I mean, I think the other thing to remember is, even when things are moving, even when things are moving in the body, usually it's a simultaneous orchestration of something is moving and something else is not moving by definition.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. And even then the transitional phase of those movements, like let's say you're dealing with, you're a soccer player, and your daughter's a soccer player. She's 14 years old. She's playing at a somewhat high level, and you want to avoid an ACL injury. You must increase the isometric strength, because all non-contact injuries are response to structural displacement.
That
And in
makes sense.
order, right? So if an object is moving, right, and let's say you go to stop and change direction and cut back on
Right.
the field. If you don't have the ability to zero out your velocity going in the original direction, and you change direction, you're going to have shear force going across, right, which is that force that basically ruptures your Achilles, or sorry, your ACL. And one of the things that you have to think about is that instantaneous moment where you wanted to prevent any movement from occurring, right? Which is high force isometrics and zero velocity.
Uh-huh.
So when you start to break it down, like the architecture of injury in sport, it just comes back to you failed isometrically. You couldn't contract with high enough force output instantaneously at that moment of time, and that led to that movement in that original, or that direction that led to the shearing force, and then subsequently the rupturing of the the tendon or the ligament in this case.
And again, context, that's non-contact injuries.
Non-contact.
Okay, yeah. Contact brings a whole other other dynamic.
That's a whole other thing. But when you're in sport, roughly 70 to 80% of the injuries are non-contact.
Is that specific to ACL, or is that just generally?
All of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. And when you're looking at, let's say office and workplace injuries, 60% of office and sport-related workplace injuries, or sport and workplace injuries, are associated with tendon and ligament.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, the impact that we can have across the board, if you just focus on the isometric component, is absolutely huge. Just because it just comes back to, once again, those 4 pillars that I hang my hat off of. Can you tolerate force? Can you generate force? Can you express force? And can you transfer force? Right. That's all it is. That's the function of being human.
Right.
And all the other stuff is secondary, to be honest. Like all the chemical exchanges, very important. However, if you can't tolerate any of those other things, then obviously they're a byproduct of, and they're all intertwined, and none of them are from a hierarchical perspective. You have to think about all of it, but that's just super complicated. So
yeah, it's interesting just thinking about like the primary nature of movement. Like there's a course I took recently where there's this principle brought up that, the prime directive of the nervous, I had it in my head that the prime directive of the nervous system is survival. And the more I thought about it, like I took this course that acknowledged that, but put a spin on it and said that the prime directive of the nervous system is to figure out how to move.
yeah.
And there's in my mind, they're different words and they maybe sort of mean different things or evoke different things, but there's kind of no difference between the two of them. If you can't move, you die.
Correct. Right. That's
So
everything from blood circulation to lymphatic circulation to respiration.
yeah,
But it really comes back to, it's not about the movement, it's about the contraction. So you have to take it back one layer further.
Sure.
But yes, movement. Well, you can obviously have isometric movement, which is not movement, and then obviously the dynamic side, which is anything thereafter.
Sure.
And it really just comes back to, as people evolve and as they experience and as they think about it, it just it's like, oh, we forgot about it, and the world is catching up. They are adding to it. And you can look at some of the things like, from more of the health side of things. So one of the things they're seeing with isometrics is an isometric exercise. It's great for lowering blood pressure. It's great for things like individuals with the ALS. It actually slows down the process of ALS. And it's pretty crazy. It helps with seniors and memory loss. So it helps with intra-brain communication. The harder you pull isometrically, it actually helps the reformation of neural connections in your brain. So things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, they're starting to see unbelievable benefits associated with isometrics.
It's so funny because they're also starting to see the benefits of pretty intense creatine, like 15 or 20 grams a day creatine supplementation for Alzheimer's patients. They're seeing cognitive improvements and the progression of Alzheimer's slowed down. And I'm wondering how much of that is the creatine supplementation enabling contraction and the ricochet of the contraction on the system, the positive ricochet effects of the contractions on the system.
Probably huge, right?
Yeah.
So you think of one of the benefits of creatine is obviously the hydration of the muscle.
Sure.
Driving muscle into the cellular structure, driving water into the cellular structure. So if a tissue is dehydrated and can't generate force, obviously the volume size of the tissue as well changes the angles that the actual muscle will contract. So it's probably going to have a better rotational component. So there's many, many factors where you just think, oh, I'm better hydrated. I had this sort of, creatine phosphate obviously is very, very important for, pretty much all things human. So, and most people, not to knock the food industry, but most people are probably suspect. Like they probably lack many things when
Yeah,
it comes to modern day food.
for nutrition, for sure, for sure. So we got into the weeds technically a little bit here, which was inevitable and a-okay. I want to bring it back though. I'm probably about 15 minutes ago. I wanted to circle back to what got you into, so you're an exercise professional, you graduate from the George Brown, the sort of very famous in Ontario, George Brown, was it fitness and lifestyle management program, which from what I've seen is still probably a top tier program for anyone who's interested in becoming an exercise professional, at least as a foundation. And you end up at isometrics. How does that happen?
Oh man, that's going like 30 years ago. So got into the exercise industry. My mom's dad died of a massive heart attack when my mom was 15 years old. So I didn't know my grandfather. And subsequently, like he had hypertension. So that was one of the precursors to heart attacks, and it's one of the leading causes of heart attacks. And so a couple of years later, I'm born. And then my grandmother died when I was like 7 years old, and so also hypertension,
Mm,
heart attack. So jump forward to when I'm like, 18 years old, going into George Brown College for fitness and lifestyles management. So that's really geared towards exercise testing, cardiovascular rehabilitation, and all of that sort of stuff. So we find out in the program that my resting blood pressure was 150 over 100. So here I am, a walking time bomb. So when you're looking at sort of hypertension, how they measure it is they measure basically the pressure against your artery wall when your heart is contracting, when your heart is relaxing. And then most people will know the number. Oh, it's like 120 over 80 is like, when you go get your blood pressure cuff measured. And now they got
sure.
really cool things from like, finger sort of measuring devices and all that sort of stuff. But so they found out that I had hypertension, and that was kind of crazy because I exercise all the time. I was like in shape, on school, like went to school like as a collegiate athlete and stuff like that. So that was a little odd, and that was kind of like one of the sort of driving catalysts for myself was the death of my grandparents, getting into sort of the exercise world. But then once I found out I had hypertension, like this made no sense. And in my program, they were telling me, don't do isometrics. It's bad for you. It's contraindicated. It would increase
Oh,
your
really?
risk of stroke and heart attack. Oh yeah, like back in the 90s, 2000s, isometrics. I still run into it today when you're talking to older, like clinical professionals, like medical doctors and stuff like that. They're like, oh no, isometrics are bad. I know, like they've been saying that for 50 years. Well, the answer is they have been saying it for 50 years. The problem is it's untrue. So the gold standard, the gold standard of any sort of cardiovascular program when looking to lower your blood pressure is always quote unquote cardiovascular training. Walking on a treadmill, go for a walk, do like cycling, and all do that aerobic training. So there's a peer-reviewed study that came out in 2023 that had over 15,000 people. Gold standard stuff like British Journal of Sports Medicine. And what they did is they compared 4 methods of exercise for the purpose of lowering blood pressure. So they compared high intensity interval training, aerobic training, resistance training, and I guess technically the combined effect of aerobic training and resistance training,
Okay.
and isometric training for the purpose of lowering blood pressure. In the study, the high intensity interval training had an effectiveness rating about 39%, right? So not very effective at all.
Mhm.
The gold standard, which is aerobic training, was 40.5% effective.
Hmm.
Resistance training, so obviously that's your weightlifting and pushing on dynamic exercise. It was 47% effective. The combined effect of resistance training and resistance training and aerobic training was 75% effective,
Okay.
and isometric training was 98.3.
Holy monkey. Okay.
So it's near perfect, right? Obviously that. Isometrics actually, when you're looking at single pharmaceutical agents, isometrics outperforms most single pharmaceutical agents on the market today.
Right.
And this is a thing that for myself, I was told not to do it. So back in 2007, I heard about a study from McMaster University, which is just outside Toronto over in Hamilton, that said isometrics was good for lowering blood pressure. And that was the most profound news story I've ever heard in my life, because what they recommended from the study was you should be doing 4 sets, so 4 repetitions of 2 minutes of taking literally a tennis ball. They call it a grip strength dynamometer, but like literally squeezing a tennis ball with your non-dominant hand and just sustain that 4 times for 2 minutes, 3 times a week.
Wow.
And what they saw with that was it was the equivalent of a single pharmaceutical agent for lowering blood pressure. So myself, I decided to implement a 20-minute per day protocol the next day. And then 2 weeks later, after 14 years of struggling with blood pressure issues, my blood pressure was normalized.
Interesting.
And that was just literally doing isometrics. And, you know, you look at that and you go, I was able to expedite the entire process because I didn't do it for 24 minutes a week. I did it for 20 minutes a day.
Right.
You know, and when you're looking at individuals with hypertension, obviously talk to your medical professional first. So we'll throw that in there. Because if you're on medication for blood pressure issues, one of the things you will see is a rapid decline in pressure with introduction of isometrics. It can become a problem if you maintain your same level of medical, like pharmaceutical, or what do you call it?
Medication or?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
For the same level of medication, we've had individuals be hospitalized because they introduced isometrics, and then subsequently didn't need it anymore, or
Right.
didn't need their medication, so they were taking like a medical product that they no longer needed.
So it's not a guarantee, but it's something to definitely watch out for, it seems like.
Correct. Yeah. So just to sort of put that out there, because it does influence something dramatically. And we had this lady, she started with us last year and she was over in Portugal. So 3 sessions in, she had lowered her systolic blood pressure. So that's an hour and a half of isometrics over 3 days. She lowered her blood pressure by 20, I think it was 22 millimeters of mercury on the top number, and
Okay.
on the diastolic.
Oh, wow.
Oh, so not an insignificant sum, but
No.
it was rapid. You know, and she was medicated and all that sort of stuff. And basically over there, she's like, you know, different medical model and all that. She's like, I'm going off my medication. And she's now subsequently off, like you have the right over there to self-medicate, from my understanding. And she's now no longer on her medication. And
It's interesting.
doing extraordinarily well.
Yeah, I guess the issue is adherence, right? Like, I mean, adherence is an issue with taking medication as well, but I think it's at the same time, I think it's a powerful message that, you know, it is possible to be off your medication, to actually, you know, enable your body to do what it was meant to do without pharmaceutical intervention. I've got nothing against effective pharmaceuticals. The principle I use personally is like, if I don't need them or if I can do something else, then that's probably a better plan, probably a better way of going about things.
Exactly. And like a lot of people just, you know, and there's a lot, how do I phrase this? This still needs to be proven clinically and scientifically.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, when they're talking about blood pressure, obviously they're looking at the heart. They're not looking at the circulatory system as a whole. So when you break down the circulatory system, you have your atrial side and you have your venous side. So your atrial side houses 35% of your blood volume. That's your heart, that's your arteries. Your veins house 65% of your blood volume. And everyone who's in the know will tell you that your veins circulate the blood back to your heart via a muscle pump.
Right.
The muscles have to contract. So if I can fix through isometrics the 65% of the equation, maybe my heart doesn't have to work so hard to pump it through 100% of the equation.
Sure.
Right.
Well, that makes sense.
It's just so logical. And obviously they still need to do the research to prove that correct.
Yeah.
But you can talk to any plumber and I can guarantee you, he will tell you that if you want return flow and you got a small pump over here and it only is functions 35% of it, well, if we fix the 65% of the flow back, it'll probably take the pressure off that little pump.
So We're getting to kind of the end of time here. To sort of begin to close things off, where can people who are interested find more information? Like, so I obviously would want as many people as possible, if they're in the Toronto area, to come check out Striation 6 and check out our ISOPHIT 30 and 30 classes. However, if you're not in Toronto or getting to any gym for any kind of regular classes, an option for you, or if you just prefer at home, I know there is an ISOPHIT MSK, an at-home version. Where can people find out more about ISOPHIT itself?
Easiest thing, go to the website. So isophit.com, ISOPHIT.com. So in my world, F stands for failure. PH is a higher level. You
Nicely
know,
done.
I know it's kind of geeky, but anyways,
That's
I,
okay.
I have some issues.
Geeky's
Um,
okay.
exactly. But yeah, go there. We post a ton of stuff on, basically we have a Substack article that goes out daily on the benefits of isometrics, which is always pretty cool. So it's probably the greatest collective of information on isometric exercise ever developed. So we're currently at about 210 articles over consecutive days.
Nice.
So it literally is probably the greatest, as I said, the greatest collection of information on isometrics. So you just, and it's all free. So go back and, read whatever subject is important to yourself. And then obviously you can follow me on LinkedIn. So I post a bunch of stuff over there as well.
Very
And,
cool.
and that's just under my name. But outside of that, get your ass into Striation 6 in Toronto. Experience 30 and 30. It will literally change how you approach and perceive exercise. How I would describe it, it literally is taking the best of yoga, the best of resistance training, and the best of high intensity interval training, and sort of like just putting it all together into a 30-minute protocol that deals with isometrics. So not only is it safer, it's more effective and it's more efficient. And that's across the board for most health and performance goals, in my opinion.
Yeah, and
So,
if I do say so myself, we also do our best here to wrap it up in a supportive community and with a bent around exercise that moves towards health. I mean, if you're the type of person who utilizes what you call exercise to be beaten into the ground, there's some intense stuff that happens in our classes. At the same time, it's not the goal. The goal is to build you up, not break you down. So that's the kind of environment that we house here, and it's the 30 and 30 classes, particularly led by Rachel, who's just awesome, an awesome protege of yours, ours, whatever. It's just it's a great community and a great environment. So if anyone's interested, I'm going to put links in the show description on Spotify and YouTube, wherever you're listening to it, to ISOPHIT, to ISOPHIT website, and also to a link where you can get your free 1 week trial of our classes and of our gym.
awesome, man. Well, I appreciate your time today, Sammy.
Absolutely, same pleasure as always. And we're in different rooms in the same building, so I'll come say what's up after we sign off.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thank you for your support of the podcast, and we'll catch you next time.